It's mid-January. I wasn't expecting to feel this way. I had so much clarity last year. Like, I knew my path, I knew what I was doing, and I was going for it, and I was not going to give up. And I'm still not going to give up, but I'm walking through the fog right now, and I'm just trying to keep moving. Happy New Year, everyone. I haven't posted a video this year. This is my first one. I took the first 2 weeks off January in filming, and I'm so glad I did, because this Capricorn cluster that kind of basically started moving from the 4th, 5th of January has, like, oh, it is really, really doing my nut in. I looked at that cluster last year, right, and I thought, oh, that's going to be an exciting time. I was like thinking, we tend to kind of sensationalize astrology in the good ways and the bad ways. So I definitely thought like my whole life was going to change in January when I saw that cluster, and it probably has internally, and I just am not aware of that right now because things take time to unfold. But for me, I'm I struggle, and I've realized this through so much therapy, is I really struggle to move without clarity. Now, if that's an excitement, if that's I know my end goal, if that is I just feel like this is aligned. And I've had none of that. And I realize now why, because I feel so much clearer now. Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Katerina. I don't know what I am. I'm not going to label myself right now because I literally have no effing idea who I am and what I'm doing. But I'm here posting on YouTube and being really real and honest. And I hope that feels like you've got a buddy on the internet. And yeah, we are doing some things. We've got some things coming, and they are what I always wanted to do. And I think the clarity will come as I keep moving through and keep writing and keep creating without consuming as much. So if this little wobble and this little paddy sounds appealing to you, then please continue watching. I bought this from HomeSense because I wanted a mug for my workspace. I'm back in my workspace. I didn't even say that. I'm in my workspace. I'm not setting up my filming space yet. I just feel like when I sit in there, I feel so good, and I feel so like, yeah, I've got this shit. I'm on it. I am a goddess, but I'm just not feeling like that. So I'm doing like the messy background, raw, real person type vibe more than the put together type vibe, which is hard for me in so many different ways. But I think the hardest part is like I've just never been true to myself. I've never shown up as me. So I'm not on here to talk to you about the astrology of the month. You can find any astrologer out there talking about the astrology of the month. It's intense. But if you were born, let's work this out, my maths. I'm girl mathing right now. I hate that phrase, but Um, if you were born mid to late 1989 to mid to late 1990, you have Jupiter in Cancer. If you then were born, let me do that, plus 12, 1989, plus 12, 1999, 2000, 2001, would that make you 24? Wait, 32. No? Yeah, no, that would make you 24. Fucking hell. If you were born in 2001, you then also possibly, I'm not sure of the exact dates, but I'm just going by the 12-year cycle that Jupiter does, that maybe 2001, 2000, 2002, check when Jupiter was, or just look at your birth chart. to see if Jupiter is in Cancer. Then if you'd have that, then you have a natal Jupiter opposition to the inner planets that are transiting your Capricorn house right now. And then you'll go through it again depending on the degree that Jupiter is in your chart. I have a 9-degree Jupiter, so I went through that opposition and now I'm going through it again. One transit to natal, now transit to transit. And I do think the transit to natal just hits deeper. I'm like 2 days into the Jupiter oppositions, or the inner planet oppositions to Jupiter within the sky, and it doesn't feel as overwhelming as when the natal shit was going on. So I would say that I started so my whole like inner planets, I also have Chiron and Cancer. So my Jupiter is very dignified, which means it's just very happy, or like it's like good. It feels good. It feels like a welcomed guest within Cancer. But with Chiron there as well, I feel like I'm constantly up and down. I'm a day chart, which means Jupiter is happier in the day. But I just honestly always feel like I am up and down, up and down. When it comes to the kind of beautiful things of Jupiter, I can get easily like what's the word? Get dragged into someone's life without staying sovereign. And that's something that I have genuinely not had clarity on until honestly the beginning of this year. And I want to get really deep for a sec and just speak about my life, because I feel like it's I'm really sorry also, I keep changing subject, but I just need my glasses on right now. I've got a headache and I feel like not being able to see is the one of the worst, most annoyingest things ever, when you don't have, like, when you're wearing a face mask, I can't effing see anything and I'm just lying on the bed, and that's fine, but it's really annoying when you can't see. So I'm really sorry if there is a glare in the glasses, but hopefully just close your eyes and listen to my voice and everything will be okay. I had so much clarity last year, and I'm going to tell you exactly why. I have been within astrology since I was 32. I'm now 36. I always knew of it. I always was interested, but I was more on the archetypes. I was absolutely obsessed with goddesses and gods, and specifically the Greek culture. Obviously, being Cretan, it's in my DNA, and I've been brought up that way. But there was like a romanticized version of thinking that I was like a descendant of them. But I was really interested in the unknown. I was really interested in understanding why someone thought that way. And, I'd often be like, if someone said, I remember recently there was a conversation about divorce, and that people are so judgmental about divorce and everything, and it's cultural and all these things, and they have a lot of opinions about whether or not a couple decide to get divorced. And I realized, I was thinking, and I just got out my little fact check book and I just looked into why are people so obsessed with why are people so obsessed with, like, in a negative way, about divorce, when marriage was literally just a contract between two businesses. I want to join I want our armies to join each other, so let's have our children marry. I want to have more sheep, so I'll give you my daughter. Like, that's kind of where it came from. That's where it stemmed from. And I just always found it so interesting that people were so passionate about something that stemmed from something that wasn't actually about love at all. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't want to get married. Of course I do. And I hope I wouldn't go through that separation. But the divorce is, to me, none of anyone else's business. It's your and your partner's business. It's whether you decide that you can't do this anymore. And I think that's absolutely normal. That's absolutely normal for you to outgrow a partner or for them to outgrow you. It doesn't mean that it's not painful. It doesn't mean you're not going to have a lot of opinions. But I just find that people's opinions on that, I just wanted to understand why you feel so passionate about this couple getting a divorce that either you don't really know or is none of, frankly, your business. And yeah, that was a complete tangent. This is why I have themes for videos, because I could, if I did a live, I'd be on there for like 3 hours. So if you want that, let me know. But I tend to talk a lot. So let's get back on track. Where was I? I was talking about the unknown. So I really love knowing about more and learning about more, and I've always been that way. I have always, picked up books, done mini courses, all those things on what you would call the occult. What I would call is understanding this world just on a deeper level. Spirituality has so many different pockets, and I think it keeps us connected to the history, the ancestry, the ancient techniques and ancient studies that we've done, and I just find it all so beautiful. Anyway, I found astrology through someone, and when I say astrology, I mean the chart. Sorry, I found reading my birth chart through someone, and they said go on to AstroSeek. Now, AstroSeek goes through like the modern astrology, where they take the degree of your ascendant and then they line it up so the whole chart goes from the degree. I didn't know any of this stuff, so I didn't know their default was Placidus, and that is the system with the degree. So I've been reading my whole chart through Placidus for so long, and this year, well, last year really, but it started to build, where I kept hearing these conversations with Hellenistic astrologers. I study Hellenistic astrology. I've paused the course for a bit because I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing with my life. And I think there was just too much pressure to get the exams done and all that stuff. So I'm kind of taking a sabbatical from that. But when I picked it up, I mainly picked it up literally from ego. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I thought maybe being Greek felt like a connection to this. I don't think that's ego, but I don't think I did it for the right idea, right reasons necessarily. I did it to get I wanted to feel kind of ancestry within this practice, and that wasn't necessarily what I got. Obviously, it's all techniques and stuff, and knowing that people did that is really great, but it's nothing to do with my ancestry, and I felt like this tie to that, and I don't really know why. But I started to do it, and before I always knew of whole sign, but honestly, I didn't pay much attention to it. I was like, oh, but this is my chart. I'm not going to change my chart. And when I started to work within Hellenistic astrology, I started to be like, I feel like I need to read my chart whole sign. And whole sign just means they take your ascendant. So it doesn't matter what degree your ascendant is at, they take the beginning of that ascendant and do the wheel. So if you're a Capricorn rising, it starts at Capricorn when Capricorn started within those 2 hours ish. So basically, you won't have multiple signs in one house. You will have one sign ruling one house, and it will go like that. That's where horoscopes come from. That's where readings come from. It's much easier for someone to give you your forecast of the year when you use whole sign versus if you use Placidus. Because if you have whole sign, you have Capricorn and therefore Cancer opposite Taurus and therefore Scorpio opposite. So they know exactly which house rules, which sign rules which house. I had this feeling that I was losing part of myself if I did whole sign. And the losing myself with that was grief, as well as me. I attached myself to the embodiment of my Placidus chart because it confirmed the archetype that I romanticized. Now, your chart doesn't change. Like, your planets, they're at the same degree. Nothing changes at all. Just the area of life that those situations might have been in. And I think psychology wise, Placidus fit me. It fed the ego, it fed my, oh, how can I say this? It fed my need to not look at what my outside life was actually like and confirmed the priestess retreat persona archetype within me. And that was all from a wound. And this is what whole sign brought up for me. I started last year. This year it built and built to the point where I couldn't carry on the way I was doing within my work, as well as feeling like I was a bit of a fraud or a bit of a liar to myself. I went through the deep excavation of my soul this year for the past 2 weeks, and it has been a lot, but I think it has been needed. I often go through these moments where I ask myself the really deep questions like, am I happy doing this? Do I want to change this? Do I like, am I happy in my life? Is there something that I can do to make me happier in my life? I I feel like when you get to a certain point in your life, there's nothing to lose. There's physical things, yeah, but I don't know. I've always just felt this need to. I don't want to live a life where I feel stuck because I've been like that for a while. That now, the past like 2 years, it's always been if I'm not happy, I change. If I'm not happy, I move because I cannot live my life for others. I cannot live my life for the fear of starting. I'll look back at 70, 80 years old and think, what the fuck was I doing with my life? Why didn't I move there? Why didn't I change that course? Why didn't I change my job? And there's a lot of fear within that. Like, you have to really ask yourself the deep questions. And the deepest question of all is, am I happy? And once you realize you might not be happy, you have to analyze where in your life you might not be happy. And that's a hard process to do. Tangents, I told you, just constantly. Anyway, I started to look at my chart as from a whole sign perspective. Whole sign is ancient, which is why it tied to me in the first place. I was like, what is this? But I didn't know that when I first started astrology, I didn't know that Placidus or whole sign were a thing. I didn't know what they were. All I did was go onto a website, put in my birth chart details, and it came up with them. I had no idea that AstroSeek was their default was Placidus. Like, just genuinely didn't know that. So for a long time, I just read my chart from the perspective that I thought that was my chart. And I didn't know any different. And I'm not saying Placidus is wrong or anything like that. I think Placidus is psychological. I think Placidus system would look at because a lot of it hit me and I felt so seen. But when I felt so seen, I realized that possibly that didn't mirror the external life around me. That didn't mirror my childhood of constantly not fitting in. That didn't mirror the relationship cycles that I have been through. It didn't mirror the fact that I felt totally alone and misunderstood and felt like I carried this burden on me from the moment I was born. And it didn't mirror those things. It did mirror the fact that I needed solitude. It did mirror the fact that I loved, like I was meant to go deep into the underworld and understand my own psyche. It did mirror that I needed rest a lot, and it did mirror the fact that I was ill. Now, if you've watched my other videos, you know that I got burnout when I was about 19, 20 years old, and I didn't listen. I kept pushing through, and basically it ended up me having autoimmune disease after autoimmune disease. I was in and out of hospital for about 8 years of my life, and then around 33, maybe even 34, I started to realize I'm pushing my body. And once I stopped pushing my body and started listening to my body, I started to naturally heal better. Like, I'm still not 100%, and I still have days where my past illnesses might have a little bit more time that they need to heal. But in my 20s, I couldn't walk up the stairs. I was bedsit for a long time, couldn't do a lot. So that to me was like, oh, Chiron in the 6th house, Saturn in the 12th, an invisible illness. Like, I read that, and I think that does have truth to it. However, when I look at my lived experiences, and also when I look at the outer planets transiting our house, that shows up more within whole sign than Placidus. And I had to be really real with myself. I've had to sit here and be like, hey, I might have been wrong for me. And that's really scary to do because no one wants to be wrong. But also it's a feeling of, is this what I'm meant to do? Like, I've said to myself that I am the underworld woman. I'm like the deep, like, oracle, and now I'm like, is that still there? And that's because I have a Libra conjunction stellium. So it is my sun at 1 degree, my Mercury retrograde at 2 degrees, and then my Mars at 3 degrees, all Libra. And they were all in the 8th house. So my identity was like 8th house themes, you know? And then I look at like my external life, and that would all move to the 10th house because I am a late degree Capricorn. I'm 24 degrees Capricorn, which means that in my 7th house and in my 1st house, I have 3 signs. So that's why it goes from the 8th house to the 11th house. The 8th house, no, 8th house to the 10th house is because I was a late degree Capricorn. One of my friends is an early degree Taurus rising, and he as at one is at 1 degree Taurus, so nothing changes in his chart. Like very, very rarely. There might be like a little bit of Capricorn in his ninth house, but in his 10th house, but predominantly it's the same. So I saw this kind of layout, and what I truly believe is that it fed the wound of my healing. It said you don't need people, and that genuinely is what I thought. I thought, oh, I can do this all alone. I can do this all alone. I don't actually need anyone to succeed. It's all in me. Now, switch to whole sign, and I have Saturn in my first house, and that is the indicator of that you feel, again, a Capricorn rising as well, so that adds on to this feeling. But you have this weight on your shoulders from the moment you were born. You feel like you are burdened with something of responsibility, of structure, of not experience joy until you've earned it. And you don't know where that comes from. When you're a child, you don't know why. You don't want to jump in the puddle like all the other kids, or you don't want to jump off the little brick step off the houses because you might hurt yourself. And for a long time, people call you boring, and people call you, why are you so sensible? And you just don't know why, but you just feel like that. So for your whole life, you've told yourself you were boring. And that was my whole sign experience when I started reading it. When I understood the overwhelming burden that I've had to carry because I don't know why. No one told me to, no one put it upon me. I just felt this sense that I had to carry my own emotions. I couldn't offload on others. It wasn't the responsible thing to do. It wasn't responsible to show my emotions. It wasn't responsible to make a fuss. Keep yourself quiet and don't have too much attention paid to you, because then you might do something wrong and then you might fail, and then that shows that you're actually weak and you can't do it all alone. But I know you can do it all alone, so keep going. And that, I genuinely, really, truly believe that my Placidus chart, the areas of life that the planets were in, fed to the idea that I needed solitude more than people. I needed to be alone more than I need people. And when whole sign came up, I cried my baby tears so much when I read that my Pluto Venus conjunction in Scorpio is in my 11th house. Because that was like, oh, fuck. Why? And I've been avoiding that question, and that, like, I'm here sitting last year being like, oh yeah, you just have to face every part of yourself. And the universe was like, are you though? Are you? Because there's things that you keep avoiding, and that is connection. And it's the main thing is that I don't let people in that much for fear that I'll be seen as like, I can't do it all alone. I can't do it all. I need someone. But then I have so much energy around the collective, communities, friendships. But because Pluto's there, Pluto's Venus conjunction is like, I'm going to give it in the most plainest ways, but this is not what I personally think, but I could talk about this subject for ages. Like, Pluto's the planet of chaos, right? Of transformation. It, if you don't listen to it, it will create chaos until you are stripped bare. You are there with nothing on you to face your true self, right? And to walk through that fire and become like the person that stops hiding, stops pretending, whatever. And when Venus is there, it's like, oh, but I just want to be adored. Like, I just want to be adored and loved, and I want to have all the fine things in life. I don't want to face the dark stuff. Like, that's not what I want to do. So when both of those signs, Pluto's really happy in Scorpio, it kind of shows that also I am a day chart, so Venus is a night planet. So it kind of shows that you have a stronger planet within that conjunction. So my Pluto's at 13 degrees, my Venus is at 14 degrees. So my Pluto does win that conversation. And that means that I go for depth first. Depth first, then aesthetically beautiful things after. And trying to come to a connection with them both that equals out is a lot of the time hard. But I also think it's something that you can't try. It's who you are. Like, you have this conjunction. You don't need to figure out which one to do more of. It's just naturally you that you do them both all together. And when I read the Placidus version, it's in my 9th house, and I was happy with that. It meant that I could do all the things I love, which is learning about new cultures, histories, expanding my mind. But I do that all in solitude. Now, if I did that all in a college, there's a couple of colleges in London that study astrology, or teach astrology. If I went there and I went to the classrooms and I was having those events, like, that would be a different experience. But I chose the online version. I chose not to go to the lecture rooms and do it online. Partly because I didn't have time to go there every week, but I think also it's deeper than that. It was this means you need people to do this and you don't. So then switched to whole sign when it uncovered into my 11th house. Oh, I didn't even need to look at anything about that conversation. I just needed to see the 11th house and went, oh, fuck. I need people, damn it. And what it taught me with that placement is, this is the reason why I feel like an outsider. And I'm trying not to get emotional when I talk about this, but this is such a deep wound. And I am being so truly raw, honest. This is the deepest shit that I've gone through in my life. I have gone through this purge for the last 2 weeks of like all the pain that I had been holding in from those experiences because I didn't want to face them. I kept saying to myself, it doesn't matter. When I sort my business out, then I will think about building connections with people within that space, or where I feel more connected to people because my ideas and stuff like that. But really it was because I've had so much pain there. I'm not saying any of this to say I'm alone. All of us have gone through that pain. But when you're ignoring something for fear of opening the wound, and then you're confronted with something that shows you it quite plainly, it makes you evaluate a lot of your decisions, because not in a horrible way to myself, but just more of like, baby, you actually really need people. It's part of your DNA. It's like literally your career, your MC, your MC is in your 11th house. Your Venus, Pluto is in the 11th house. Your fortune is in your 11th house. You need people. Everyone needs people. But I thought, it's not a focus for me. I could do it alone and then figure out later. But that later would never come. And I think this is why I needed to go through that purge. And I think this is why I had so much unclarity and stuck feeling and literally no idea what I'm doing with my life. And then when I read Whole Sign and opened up those wounds, I was like, oh, yeah. And I'm writing something at the moment, which I'm really, it's just been so therapeutic. I don't know if I will put it out there, but it's my life with Saturn and being a Capricorn rising and being Saturn ruled, and my life with that, my lessons with that. You know, I have gone through, you know, I'm not a 23-year-old talking about Saturn return when I haven't lived through it. I've lived through all of that shit. I'm in my Saturn square right now, but I also didn't know of that stuff. I didn't know Saturn return when I was living my Saturn return, and if I did, I would have stayed consistent. I would have been devoted to whatever I wanted to do at that moment, but instead I escaped. I did the complete opposite. And I talk about this in this kind of like body of work that I'm writing, and it's been so therapeutic, and I'd really recommend it if you have a negative, even if you just don't really connect with astrology, you should write about your experiences in life because it's so therapeutic. But if there's a planet where you feel like you, when the even the someone saying the name of the planet makes your body go, oh, write about it, write about your experience with it, because it really, really helps. I was told for so long that like being Saturn ruled is like the worst thing in the world, and I didn't have enough knowledge to understand why, so I just believed them. And yeah, that's been so therapeutic, so I would definitely recommend it if you were looking at that. But anyway, I feel like I've rambled enough, and I could talk for ages. Maybe I'll record another video in a bit, because I really just feel like talking today, but I have to be careful because that moon is going to get me into trouble. But anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next week.